Hello and welcome everybody. Appreciate you all joining us. This is Craig Klein. I'm the founder and CEO of Sales Nexus and also a co-founder of the Sales Growth Hub. And this is our third webinar in the Sales Growth Hub webinar series. If you have joined us for the previous webinars, we appreciate that. If you missed those, just so you know, you can go to the Sales Growth Hub site and there's recordings of all these webinars available there for you to watch at any time. So let me tell you a little bit about the Sales Growth Hub. Sean, if you don't mind going to the next slide there.
Yeah, trying to. There we go.
Yeah, so essentially what the Sales Growth Hub is about is we as business owners and marketers and sellers ourselves have experienced a problem that probably most of you have experienced as well. There's a whole lot of things that you have to do to market and sell in today's world. And it really gets overwhelming very fast. And especially for a smaller business, it can be difficult to find the resources and the time to manage all of the different channels that you're marketing through and selling through, and or the vendors that you're relying on to do some of that for you. It seems like everybody's playing from a different sheet of music. Trying to coordinate them all can be very time-consuming. It just becomes overwhelming. So what we wanted to do was create a network of providers of marketing and selling services that could work together well and make it easier and more efficient for customers to grow their business. And we wanted to build a platform that allowed us to collaborate and add value for our customers in a more efficient way. So that's what the Sales Growth Hub is all about, and this webinar series is just our way of helping you learn some things about what we know about marketing and selling and see if there might be some opportunities for you to grow your business. So I'll tell you a little bit about the different areas of expertise that are represented by the members of the Sales Growth Hub. If you want to go to that next slide, Sean. We have members that focus on lead generation, search engine optimization, social media, web design and development, sales consulting and coaching, sales tools and software and customer relationship, sales training, marketing consulting and branding, email marketing, video production, PR, and pay-per-click advertising and digital marketing, as well as other things. So if you're a business in 2014, there's no doubt that you need to take advantage of one or more of those types of services, and we hope that a Sales Growth Hub member will be able to talk to you about that. And Sean, if you'll go to that next slide. There we go. So these are some of the companies that are represented in the hub. I want to give special thanks to Lead Ferret. Lead Ferret supplies contact data lists. And so, you know, whatever industry you're targeting, if you're targeting business people, they can provide you with a prospect list. They have been a big help in promoting these webinars, and so thanks a lot to Lead Ferret. If you haven't checked it out yet, you definitely should. You can start a free account and start downloading prospects today. And also want to be sure and thank Michael Halper and SalesScripter. Michael's a founding member of the Sales Growth Hub. And again, if you haven't checked out SalesScripter, you really should. You can start a free account there, and you'll be blown away by what it does for you in terms of helping your sales team know what to say and what to ask when they're on the phone or in front of customers, as well as a lot of other things that it does. But you can also see there's companies that are in the sales business, the social business, and today we are privileged to have Sean Piket of Sales Integrity to present today's webinar. And Sean, I really appreciate you making time to do this for us. It's a really great opportunity for everybody. And with that, I'll turn it over to you and let you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and take it from there.
Great. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Craig. Thanks for the intro. For everyone that's on the call, my name's Sean Piket. I'm the founder and CEO of Sales Integrity. It's a company I launched back in 2004, and coming up in May here will be our 10-year anniversary, so we're still going strong. And what we do is build and develop sales teams primarily for technology industry companies, although we've kind of spanned the spectrum on different industries, but the bulk of our customers tend to be in the technology industry space in some form or fashion, and it tends to be a consultative, complex sale, business-to-business related, the solution selling, strategic selling type approach there with relationship building within that. So that tends to be our core customer set. I thought that would be helpful understanding that. My experience has been in that technology industry in the past, primarily working for emerging growth IT consulting firms in a sales and then sales leadership, VP of sales type role. And throughout the years, built up some experience, some good toolkit and approach, and then that's when I ended up launching Sales Integrity in 2004 to go out and help companies like that increase sales and earn more money. So that's what we do. Sales Integrity overall, we, as I mentioned, build and develop sales teams. We do that through our sales recruiting, sales coaching, and coaching enablement offerings. So that's what we do. Today, really, the primary focus is on really, giving back and providing information for everyone here on the call, so you can, my hope is that you can take information that you learned today and just run with it on your own. And if you're interested in talking to us afterwards, that's great. If not, that's great as well. Just want to make sure that we're out there and doing our part in helping those that need help in the sales growth arena. So that's a little bit about me and my organization. So we'll move on and focus now on the actual webinar topic, which you all signed up for today. Before I jump into that, everyone's muted, and typically when I do webinars, I make it more interactive where I'll pause after certain slides, ask questions and all that. But as you can tell by the topic title, How to Build and Develop a Highly Productive Results-Driven Sales Team, I'm kind of spanning the spectrum of that build and develop of sales teams. So there's a lot of information jam-packed in today's agenda. So what I'm going to do today is run through this all, and if you have questions in the upper right or on the console there, you can go ahead and type in your questions there. And then Patrick Pickett, our account executive, senior account executive, is going to be monitoring that. My material is probably realistically about 30 minutes worth of material. As you can already tell, I speak fast and I'll move through it fairly quickly. But just know that Pat's going to keep an eye on those questions. We're going to go back and answer those questions after I'm done presenting, and then if time allows, we'll open up the lines and I'll field any more questions that you have. In addition to that, everyone within 24 hours after this webinar is going to receive an email from GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, and you're going to have a recording or access to a recording of this webinar, so you can go through it again if you'd like for reinforcement learning and just kind of referring back to it. You're also going to get the materials. Anything that you see me present here today, you'll get materials on. And then I also wrote a brief white paper by the same title, How to Build and Develop a Highly Productive Results-Driven Sales Team, and it kind of summarizes everything I'm going to run through today. You'll also get that. And then following up from that, Pat's going to reach out to each of the attendees here via phone and email, just ensure that you did get that information. And if you have any other questions, he can field those or set up a time for me just to jump on and do a quick call at no charge, just for us to jump on and see if you have any other questions on what you learned here today. So that's kind of setting it up so we know what to expect, and now we're going to go ahead and run through the webinar content. So when you received information on this webinar, there were some things, some bullet points we said that you would learn, and so here's what you'd learn today. I'm just going to summarize this up front. The first thing is 3 decisions you must make prior to interviewing sales candidates. I'm sure a lot of the folks on the phone are running companies and sales leadership positions even, and you've had your fair share of hiring and challenges associated to that. So we're going to walk through what we've learned in our 10 years and even before that as I was a sales executive on 3 decisions you must make prior to interviewing sales candidates. Second thing is 3 absolute must-dos prior to hiring sales professionals. That sounds like a similar point as the first one, but I just want to make a key distinction. The first point addresses interviewing sales candidates. So with interviewing sales candidates, that's different than actually pulling the trigger and investing and hiring them. So these are 3 absolute must-dos prior to hiring them, where the first point is 3 decisions you must make prior to interviewing them. And the third point is 3 reasons why sales professionals struggle to achieve their sales and income goals. This is important to understand. If you have a sizable sales force, whether it's 3, 30, 300, doesn't matter. If you have folks that are struggling, there's clear reasons why they're struggling. We did a study in the past. I'm going to walk through that real quick and coming up here in the coming slides to walk you through the 3 reasons why they struggle to achieve their sales and income goals. On the flip side of that, there's the best of the best reps, the ones that are far outperforming their peers, what we refer to as sales achievers. I'm going to walk you through the 6 core competencies that top sales achievers apply to consistently outperform those common sales professionals. You're also going to learn how to determine aggressive yet attainable sales metrics each sales performer can realistically achieve. The 6th thing is how to ramp up new sales hires faster than you currently do. Because the nature of our business is building and developing sales teams, a lot of that building occurs through the recruiting efforts that we do on behalf of our clients, where we place full-time professionals on their sales force. And the #1 challenge they have is ramping up new sales hires and having them start to produce in a realistic time frame. They feel it takes too long. We hear that quite a bit. So we're going to walk you through how to ramp them up faster than you currently do. The 7th thing you're going to learn is how to apply the #1 strategy for consistently getting more out of each individual sales performer. This is based on industry research from reputable agencies out there, research institutes out there, not just what we've learned through Sales Integrity's interaction with our customers. So we're going to walk you through how to apply that, and then at the end of it, pulling it all together. How do I make sense of what I've learned today? So how to build and develop that highly productive results-driven sales team. So first thing we're going to focus on is 3 decisions you must make prior to interviewing sales candidates. So before you even begin searching for or even interviewing sales candidates, these are the 3 decisions you want to look at. And one thing I want to point out as you first see the first point, normally I don't put as much detail on PowerPoint slides because it makes it tough in presentations like this to kind of discern what the information is. However, I do realize that there won't be as much interaction as normal, and this is going to be leave-behind material, so to speak, that you'll receive later. So I wanted to make it easy for those who aren't going to go back and re-listen to this broadcast for you to really understand exactly what these points mean. So I put a little bit more detail underneath each of the points. Normally I wouldn't do that. So that's why you see, if this looks like an eye chart, that's why. So the first point, your sales model, the first decision you really need to make is, what is your sales model? So your sales model for your sales operation and overall go-to-market strategy. That might seem simple and it might be a little confusing, but overall your sales model helps you determine your go-to-market strategy. And so here's a little bit more detail and some questions to ask yourself to help you understand this point a little bit further. Do you have any inbound, or do you have an inbound lead strategy? Does it include marketing, PR, social media? And does that inbound marketing strategy funnel leads to your sales team? So that's one question. And if you do have one, okay, that determines the type of roles that you'll have in your organization. But if you don't, that's a different type of individual you might need to hire. Or is your sales team expected to generate all the leads themselves? So they're going to do everything, from cold calling, setting up appointments, networking, attending trade shows, events, qualifying those opportunities, putting proposals together, driving them through those opportunities through the funnel to closure, signing up clients, handling contracts. That all really those are all questions you should ask yourself, and that lends itself to what your sales model really is. Another component of your sales model is, do you have a channel partner or reseller strategy, or do you only sell directly to customers? Because that also affects the type of roles that make up your sales operation. And the other thing is there a need for account managers, or do your outbound sales reps handle all facets of selling, as I just walked through? So they're hunters and farmers, so to speak. So these are all questions you really need to ask yourself. I want to make sure I put it in here so as I'm moving through this quickly, you had it later when you print this out and review it. But you first need to determine your sales model before you even begin interviewing sales candidates. Well, why is that? Well, the second point really walks you through that, and I alluded to it a little bit earlier. The profile of the ideal sales professional for each role within that model, you need to understand that. So once your model is set, then you'll know what those roles are. So once you know that overall sales model, what your sales operation looks like, the org chart, so to speak, and then the go-to-market strategy, to have resellers or not, to have one individual handle all those roles, or to divide that out to the power of focus down to each role and they focus on one thing. Those are all key questions. So once that model then is set, then you know what you have on your hands for the types of roles that make up that model. So inside sales, sales support engineers, outside sales, account managers, sales managers, channel managers. I put some in there just to kind of distinguish that so you understood it. This will help you clearly define the responsibilities for each role. Once you know what those roles are, you can then match that new org chart role responsibilities against your existing sales team and determine, do I have current team members on the team now that fit some of these positions? Are they out of position? I need to transition them to another role. Or in some cases, do some of the reps not fit? Under our new model moving forward, are they just not a fit for it? They're not cut out for it. So that helps you make those tough decisions, and those are tough decisions you got to make. That really helps you understand what those roles look like, and then in turn it helps you understand how many open positions you need to fill. And then the third decision is the realistic compensation plan associated to each role within that model. The key word here is realistic, and I'll get into that in just a second. After you know your sales model and the roles within that model, you can begin assessing the comp plans, the comp models against industry standards for each role. So it's important to do that research because it'll help you create the right comp plan instead of just kind of arbitrarily picking something out of thin air or just making up a compensation plan based on what you feel is good or you heard from someone else. Because when you get into the recruiting, interviewing, and hiring process, that takes an incredible amount of time. And what you don't want to do is waste that time and end up losing candidates farther down the process once they find out what the comp plan looks like. Or if you're letting the candidates know the comp plan up front, you're just not getting enough people applying for your position. So if you have one of those two issues where you're not getting enough qualified candidates applying for your position, or you are getting some but then you're losing them, some that you really liked, and then once you pulled back the curtain and let them know what the comp plan looks like and gave them a little bit more detail, they walked on the process and said they're not interested any further. If that's the case, that's a good indication that your compensation model is probably not realistic for that role. And so as you can see, 1, 2, 3 here, your sales model determines the roles that are within that model, then determine what is the ideal individual for each role and define what those responsibilities are, and then from there you can determine what a realistic compensation plan is. You want to evaluate that against the marketplace. Of course, we do this for a lot of our clients. We have some clients that have done a really good job, done this on their own. But nonetheless, whether you work with a company like ours or you're going to do this exercise on your own, it's worth doing. And in some cases, it might cause for a radical shift in the way you're going to market and what your sales, outbound sales strategy is. But these are 3 decisions you must make. Otherwise, you could be wasting time as you start interviewing candidates, especially if you're losing a lot of candidates or not getting a lot of qualified ones. So those are 3 decisions you must make prior to interviewing sales candidates. I'd like to throw a little quote here at the end. Think ahead, don't let day-to-day operations drive out planning. This is a Donald Rumsfeld quote. I like this quote, and I think it's relevant for this particular slide because the most common thing I hear from potential customers are, hey, I don't really have time. We're so busy in our day-to-day operations. I don't have time to pause and stop and look at that model. Worse yet, I fear if I have to change it, it's going to cause us to re-architect what we're doing. Well, my response is if you're dissatisfied with the results, sales is a results business. If you're dissatisfied with the results, you don't have a team that's really above the line, and I define the line as quota, target, budget, goal, however you want to define that, then you might want to pause and slow down just a little bit and at least take a day or half a day or something to really plan through and think this through with your executive leadership team. So that's one quote I like to throw out there. The next slide here is on the 3 absolute must-dos prior to hiring sales professionals. So now you've begun your search. You found some candidates. You validated your sales model, so you know the right roles, the comp plans are realistic. So before you hire them, let's say you've gone through the process, you have a short list of some of these candidates, and naturally a lot of executives say, hey, it's my gut feel, I think this person will work out, I'm going to go ahead and hire them. But here's 3 absolute must-dos you should add to your process if you're not already doing this prior to actually extending an offer and hiring sales professionals. First one is connect with them on LinkedIn and review their existing network. This sounds like a very simple step, However, most of the individuals we speak with, most of the sales executives and company leaders we speak with just don't do this. Now, I want to make sure I caution you on one thing. This doesn't mean every candidate that you interview. This is really the ones that you feel very good about and that you say, okay, we're going to extend them an offer and make an investment of time and money into hiring this individual. So these should really be 3 final steps, look at it that way, versus doing this with every single candidate. And if you do this and you don't see something you like and you decide to rescind the offer or just not make them an offer after going through these 3 steps, you can always disconnect from them on LinkedIn if you don't feel like they're going to be a valuable asset to your network. So given that, let's look at this. Connect with them on LinkedIn, review their existing network. So the first thing is you're looking for both quality and quantity associated to their network. And there's always a debate when it comes to LinkedIn, and maybe some of the executives or company leaders on the call now, maybe your industry doesn't leverage LinkedIn as much as others. So I recognize that. In the technology industry and some other professional services type industries, it's very prevalent, and it's a very good tool to leverage for managing your network, executing on your network, and all that. So you're going to look for quality and quantity, and quality is really determined by the types of individuals. So what you want to do is really look at their first-degree connections, and this is why you want to connect with them, because you won't have visibility to their entire network unless you're really connected to them. You might have visibility to the first few that they show there, but once you're connected to someone as a first-degree connection, then you have visibility into their entire network, all their first-degree connections. So you want to see who they're connected to and what are the quality of those individuals. Obviously, they're going to be selling to executives or they're going to be selling to your end customers. You define who that is depending on your industry. What do those executives look like? What are those titles? So you're going to go through there and look how many of those individuals do they have in their network. Are they well connected with actual potential customers? That's one thing. The other one is potential strategic partners and networking partners who sell to a similar customer set that could facilitate introductions. So that's one thing you're looking at from a quality. From a quantity perspective, having a low quantity doesn't necessarily mean they're not well connected. I've had some debates with sales professionals over the years on this, and I tell them this exactly. So it doesn't mean you're not well connected. What it does mean is that you can't, your network isn't as actionable. You can't execute on those contacts as fast as someone who does have it all digitized within LinkedIn and have visibility into the recent happenings and things that are going on, in their professional world. So it's just not as actionable. And that tells you something about them. Are they more manual in nature? Are they going to take longer to get things done? Or are they going to be able to take quick action? And as we know in sales, again, it's the ultimate results game. So we're looking for, especially new sales professionals, to ramp up as quickly as possible, take action on that network. One of the more common things sales professionals will say in interviews is they got a big network and they can execute on it and bring it with them, a book of business sometimes it's called. So this is a proof point to see, okay, do they really have a book of business? Do they really have an actionable network there? So you can take a look at that as well. And then the other thing you're going to look for, the last thing within this LinkedIn search and after connecting with them, is do you have any common connections? Typically, if you're hiring people in your industry, you're probably going to have at least one or a few common connections. If they've been in your industry, you're hiring an experienced sales professional who's sold in your market, in your industry niche. Chances are, each of the markets you're in, they seem large, some of them, but really when it comes to networking with the advent of the internet and LinkedIn specifically, it shrinks those markets and makes them a little bit small. And so when you look at that, if you don't have anyone in common, that might tell you something, especially if it's a smaller market. But if you do, then ask the candidate directly and make sure you can visibly see how they react. I wouldn't ask them on the phone. Ask them in an interview, how well do you know that individual? Because that'll tell you a couple things. One is they're going to get the sense you're going to call them, which you should, call those common connections and do a little bit of a background check on them, reference check. And then the other thing is, do they know all the people in LinkedIn? Or are they more of a quantity person or a quality person? Are they just connecting with anyone out there so their network is watered down and not as actionable? That'll tell you that as well. So that's the first step, is really connecting with them on LinkedIn, review their existing network. It's a data point. You're not going to probably make a final decision on a candidate, but it's one of the final data points you should definitely do, or you should definitely consider. The second one is validate that they are who they say they are during the interview. I always caution executives, sales executives, business owners, that sales professionals are in the business of sales. They're in the profession of sales. And so their greatest product is going to be themselves, especially if they're out of work and they're interviewing for a job. They're going to bring their A game. They should, at least. and they're going to bring their A game, and they're going to sell themselves very hard. So you know that. You know they're going to present only the good stuff as much as possible. So what you're trying to do through these steps is kind of peel back the onion a little bit further and figure out, are there any disqualification points versus qualification points? And this is one of them, validating who they say they are, and really looking at the income that they've earned, because again, sales is the ultimate, results game. And so our scorecard is, sales and income, those two things, right? So how much we're selling determines how much they earn. So ask them for a copy of their W-2. It's perfectly legal. You let them know that up front in the process, so you can alleviate some people that'll waste time. We have some clients that are very specific about, if they haven't earned, at least $200,000, last year, where they could show a W-2 that they've done that, and really they were in a sales role selling software or whatever it may be, services in our industry niche, then I don't want to even entertain interviewing them, because I want people who produce results. People who produce results would typically earn at least that much. So some clients get that specific, some kind of give a range, or they at least want to see it. The other aspect of asking them for this is they might present earlier on that they sold a lot more and they've earned a lot more, and then this is a proof point. So are they doing what they say they can do, or they are who they say they are? This is a real good proof point. This will scare off the candidates who are pretenders and not really producers, and that's what you want to do, not waste your time with pretenders there. So I always say candidates can mislead, they can misdirect, they can sell themselves really well as it relates to perceived income and earnings, but W-2s don't lie. So keep that in mind as well. The third point then is have them create, and this is to me one of the most important ones, even if you're not doing the first two, have them create, then present their 90-day ramp-up plan. And this is very important, and most of the executives, most of the companies we work with just aren't doing this. It takes time. It takes your time, because you're going to have them come in, sit down, and present to you. You want to block off at least an hour for that, maybe an hour and a half. You're going to ask them questions, and have them not only create but present it to you. This will help you determine how they would ramp up if you didn't provide them a formal ramp-up plan. It also provides you a wonderful look inside their mentality and their style of thinking and communicating. The other part, related to that is, how do they do under pressure? They know this is the final step, and this will may determine or have a big weighted factor in determining whether you're going to hire them or not, right? So they need to bring their A game. They need to present this really well, and it needs to be a good plan. So from this, you can determine how experienced they really are. It's just a validation point, but you can also determine, are they organized, driven, self-reliant? Do they perform well under pressure, under deadlines? You don't want to give them weeks to do it. Give them a couple days or so to do that, and turn around and come back and make that a final step there. And the other thing is, you'll understand about that candidate, do they need a lot of hand-holding, guidance, and support, or are they going to be able to be self-sufficient? So that's something that you want to keep an eye on. So these are the three absolute must-dos prior to hiring sales professionals. If you're not doing these three things today, add it to your process when it comes to interviewing and specifically getting closer to the hiring and pulling the trigger on someone. And I think you'll be surprised. It might weed out some candidates you would have hired. So if you've hired people in the past and you felt like, wow, they were great in the interview process, but since they've been on board, they haven't sold anything in 6, 9, 12 months, whatever it may be, these three steps can really help you understand that ahead of time. Again, it's not a perfect science, but it's as much as you can add science into the hiring process as possible, because hiring tends to be a lot more about art. We talk about art, science, and best practices in the world of sales a lot. Hiring tends to be more art than science, and this is where you can incorporate some of the science into that. And I provided a quote on that. The man of science has learned to believe in justification, not by faith, but by verification. So people have heard that, hope is not a strategy, or just don't have faith someone's going to perform. Make it as scientific as possible. You can never get it completely to a check the box, and they're either, all boxes are checked and they're going to be a perfect hire or not. It's kind of like the NFL draft, or any sports teams going through a draft trying to select talent. There's going to be a little bit of wiggle room there. You're not always going to get it right, but this will help reduce some of those mishires. So those are the three absolute must-dos prior to hiring sales professionals. 3 reasons why sales professionals struggle to achieve their sales and income goals. As I mentioned, we were founded in 2004. In 2009, we did a 5-year study across all the sales forces we managed and coach, and really wanted to determine the answer to 2 questions. The first one is, what holds the common sales professional back from consistently achieving their sales and income goals? And the second one was, what makes the best of the best sales professionals consistently outperform their peers by such a large margin? So what we found was both astoundingly simple for why common sales professionals struggle, yet more complex, as you can imagine, for what makes the best of the best far outperform their peers. Obviously, it's the old saying, if it was easy, then everyone would be the best of the best, right? So there's a little bit of a barrier to entry there. So why was that? I wanted to answer those two questions because that was quite puzzling. And I always, mention, as I mentioned earlier, whether you could put the rankings on the wall for all the sales forces, and whether it's 330, 300, 3,000, it doesn't matter. You're always going to have one or two at the very top toggling in and out. So two individuals toggling in and out of the top spots, no one else even close to them. The majority of the sales force toggling in the middle of the pack, above or below what I refer to as the line, which is budget, quota, target, goal, whatever you call it at your organization. And then you always had one or two stragglers at the bottom that just weren't fit for sales and probably needed to move on to a different profession. And it was always that same thing. So that's what caused me to do this study and really dig deep into this to figure that out. And the first part I mentioned was astoundingly simple for why common sales professionals did not achieve their sales and income goals. It was for three reasons. It was always the same three reasons, no matter what they sold, and it was these three reasons in order as well. Not prepared, not organized, not productive. Those were the three reasons. And as we dug a little bit further, we figured out that if a sales professional is not prepared, they tend not to be organized. If they're not organized, they tend not to be productive. If you're not productive, you're not going to achieve your sales and income goals. So these were the three reasons. These are the three reasons why those sales professionals would struggle. And when you look through, I put a little bit more detail in there. If you're not prepared, you tend to fly by the seat of your pants. If you're not organized, you're winging it on a daily, weekly basis in the way you're operating. If you're not productive, you tend to feel overwhelmed and you mismanage your time. And so this is what holds the most common sales professionals back. So if you're looking at your sales force and inevitably, you have one or two real good performers, but if you have people that are struggling, even people that get in slumps that have been good traditionally, you could probably look to these three core reasons as to what's holding them back at that time period. They're not prepared, they're not organized, they're not productive. A better way of saying they're really overwhelmed, but it's because of those three reasons. So keep that in mind. Then the more complex side of that study, answering the second question of why did the best of the best far outperform their peers, what we learned is that they obviously were prepared, organized, productive, but furthermore, the way they did that is by really learning, applying 6 core competencies. They did 6 things differently, is the way to look at it. 6 things differently than their peers. They did them consistently. We call them core competencies, that they develop those and they apply those on a daily, weekly basis, and that's the way they operate. And so they're supremely confident through careful planning. Because they're prepared, they're more organized, and they're more productive because they applied what we refer to as the 6 T's of sales achievement. Those are those 6 things. And what those really are, that leads to the next aspect, is the 6 core competencies top sales achievers apply to consistently outperform their common sales professionals. We had a lot of words on the previous screen, so I thought I'd give you a visual here. But you can look at these 6. Start at the top with target market, and that's where we come up with the T's. All of these start with T's. Target market, territory management, tangible benefits, talk tracks, tactical planning, and tempo management. A better way to look at that, kind of flip it on its head a bit, is questions they might ask themselves. Who is my target market? Who is my ideal client? And really understanding that before they go to market. Where do I find them? And then how do I manage that territory, once I do find them? And then why would they work with us? Not why I need to go to market or go connect with them, or not making it about us as a company, our services, products, features, and benefits, but putting their client cap on, their customer hat, getting into their shoes, getting into their mind, and understanding why would they work with us? What are the tangible benefits they'll receive through the use of our services, products, or solutions? Then what? How do I? What is that tangible benefit translated into dialogue talk tracks or talk tracks? What is that messaging of how I'm going to communicate effectively with that target market? How do I communicate those tangible benefits correctly there? And then the last 2 are tactical planning. It's the how. How am I going to go about going to market, addressing my target market, managing that territory, making sure I understand those tangible benefits, then translating that into talk tracks so I communicate it effectively. How do I manage that within a tactical plan? What are all the things I need to be doing on a daily, weekly basis? What is the best use of my time? So how do I go about tactical planning? And then finally translating all of those tactics into what we refer to as blocks of time. And we call it tempo management, not time management. Time is the same for everyone. You hear that excuse a lot. I don't have time. I don't know where the time goes. I didn't accomplish what I set out to accomplish at the beginning of the day. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Well, the best of the best, the sales achievers, they have the exact same amount of time as everyone else. Why are they far outperforming everyone? It's because they get into a rhythm, or what we call tempo, and they manage that tempo, and so they know exactly when they should be doing, what they need to be doing as far as the tactics go. So these are the 6 core competencies that they develop. They pull all these together into a quarterly sales plan. They don't have an annual one that seems like a large, daunting project to come up with, and then they end up shelving it anyways, going back to winging it, which is what the common sales professional does. They take it down to bite-sized 3-month increments, and they look at, okay, in this quarter, what am I going to accomplish here? So they take those 6 components, they roll it into a quarterly sales plan, and they operate off of that. So in essence, what I'm talking about with the 6 core competencies and why the best of the best far outperform the common sales professionals, number one, they're more prepared, they're better organized, and because of those 2 things, they're more productive. The analogy I like to use here is in any sport, that you look at, football, basketball, baseball, any sport you can think of. There's game day, and there's everything else leading up to game day. And if game day is on Saturday or Sunday, in the beginning of the week, the coaching staff will come up with, here's my game plan. We're going to watch film. We're going to practice to practice that game plan, start executing it, and getting ready for game day. So it's all the blocking, tackling, practice, planning, and all that stuff. And that helps you become prepared and more organized, so when you get to game day, you're more productive. And so that's what they focused on. They didn't wing it. They didn't fly by the seat of their pants. They prepared and organized by really applying these 6 core competencies and getting that planning in place, so that way they're more productive on game day. So it's an analogy I like to use that people tend to understand. So when it comes to sales metrics and ramping up new sales hires, I added the 2 questions or the 2 things you're going to learn into one, because these are very, very related. The first one is how to determine aggressive yet attainable sales metrics each sales performer can realistically achieve. Second one is how to ramp up new sales hires faster than you currently do. And so what we look at here, and this is a lot. This could look like an eye chart. This is why you're going to get it. So you can use this as a checklist and kind of map this against what you're currently doing. But we'll call this the sales performance matrix. And you look along the left side here, you see the key elements associated to that: orientation, onboarding, metrics, monitoring, training, and coaching. So those are the areas that you need to take a look at and really map it against what you're doing today, and be honest with yourself on whether you have something that checks that box, you have something that fulfills that component or key element, where you're just not even addressing it all. And so I'm not going to read all of the descriptions. You can go through that yourself, but really some of the key topics and things you need to look at. When it comes to orientation, this is really day 1 and week 1. And so this is ramping up new sales hires at a faster rate. So day 1 and week 1, when a new hire starts, you're putting them through a company orientation so they understand the history of the company, the messaging, where the company's going, the vision, all that good stuff. And then the products and services training, so they understand that as well. But a lot of companies miss out on really training them on the complete sales process. Here's our common sales language. Here's how we go to market. What they tend to do is they give them their workstation, their office, their cube, whatever it may be. Here's your laptop, iPad, whatever it may be there. Here's your systems access for a CRM system, for where we store documents that like proposals and marketing materials, things like that. Here, go pal up with the #1 sales rep. Go follow them around, shadow them for a couple days. Here's your territory, and here's some context in there. You slap them on the back, you send them on their way and say, now good luck to you. And that's what most companies, whether they're small, emerging growth startups that we work with, up to very, very large companies, that's where they tend to be. And self-admittedly, they're like, yeah, we kind of rush through that because we want to get them out there selling as fast as possible. And so you can see some of the templates and tools that go along with that, but they're not as formal when it comes to day 1, week 1. And that's where they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to learn. You want to get them as much information as it relates to orientation as possible in that first week. The onboarding is a different scenario. People think that's the same thing as orientation. Where orientation is day 1 and week 1, onboarding is the first 90 days of that ramp-up program. And I break it into 30, 60, and 90-day ramp-up there. There should be formal checkpoints. There should be role-playing and shadowing. Role-play with them. Have them be the customer. Have a script or 2 for a role-playing session, already scheduled out. You walk them through how it's done. Part of this, the shadowing could be out in the field, having them go along with the best rep or go along with you out on real client calls. It's a great way for them to learn. So that's one part of onboarding. The other part is really expected metrics versus activity and results. A lot of times you'll say, here's your quota, but you won't really break it down. We've seen this with a lot of companies. They won't break it down to, here's what your activity needs to be. At day 30, you should have had this many meetings. You should have had, this many potential opportunities, this many opportunities in your pipeline. By day 60, it's grown to this number. Set minimum metrics. And it's going to be different for every company, but just to give you some, it could be, depending on the role, number of dials they make, number of conversations they make, number of appointments set or scheduled. That could be more for an inside sales role or a lead generator, even outside salespeople if they're expected to fulfill that component. Then number of meetings attended, number of qualified opportunities in your pipeline, dollar value of that sales pipeline, in total, average dollar value per deal in there as well. So those are some more metrics. And then obviously the grand poobah of all metrics is closed business, right? So how many closed deals, what's the dollar value associated to that? And you could take all of those and match those metrics up with, okay, here's what I expect you to be at. At day 30, you should have had this many calls, this many appointments set. By day 60, you should have at least met with X amount of prospective customers. You should have met with 2 or 3 people in your network that you know per week to share with them what you're doing now, what company you're with. So really take time to think through the metrics that you expect. This is the biggest downfall of a lot of companies where they have certain expectations, but it's in their mind. They haven't documented it and taken the time and really presented that to the individual up front, even in the interviewing process, to let them know, when you come in here, this is what we expect you to do. We have a formal ramp-up program that involves orientation and onboarding. We're going to do some checkpoints. We're going to sit down with you at day 30, 60, and 90 to make sure you're on track. Those are what we call sales performance indicators. They indicate, when I'm moving to the metrics now, they indicate sales performance is indicative of creating sales results. So you want to make sure that the indicators are trending in the right area. Otherwise, you can jump on it and correct it fairly quickly to figure out where they're struggling and what those pain points are. And not after 6 months, 9 months, 12 months when, hey, they're just not producing and I don't know why. You can really shape a new employee's future in those first 90 days by forming the right habits, routines, and behaviors up front and setting the right expectations so they perform accordingly. A lot of times we leave that loosey-goosey and let them kind of go run on their own after giving them a little bit of guidance up front. And obviously that doesn't work as well as providing a more structured guidance, a formal 90-day ramp-up, getting them out of the gates a lot faster that way. And so the metrics, sales performance indicators indicate sales performance is coming. Key performance metrics then are really result-based metrics. It shows that the results are there. So number of closed business, number of net new clients, number of expanded, second deals, third deals if that's applicable, total dollar value closed, things like that are key performance metrics that you're looking at. And I put some templates and tools in there to, here are some of the key areas that you would look at. These are templates and tools we typically bring to the table for our customers. You should have something in this area, a quarterly sales plan, providing them with a template so it's all consistent, everyone's filling out the same one. Let them know what their quotas and targets are, especially down to the metric-based, the sales performance indicators, where you expect them to be at. And then performance reports can come in a variety of ways. Obviously, a CRM system produces some of it. But maybe if you're having everyone schedule everything, you can have them print off their calendar, and that's how you can count up how many meetings they actually had, things like that. But those are the things that need to occur. Doing an annual review is key. Quarterly updates and refreshing that sales plan so they're not working off an old plan that's not working. You can make corrections quicker, and then monitoring that on a weekly basis. And the monitoring, when you get to the next side of it, measuring weekly process versus results, you can do that at a one-on-one level for the personal individual, and then overall as a team, in team meetings. I don't recommend having one big team meeting to save time and then reviewing each individual's pipeline and addressing each individual's challenges in front of the whole team. It's a colossal waste of time for the team. I know you're trying to save time if you're doing that for yourself, but it's not productive and it doesn't do a whole lot for morale. So it's better to spend that one-on-one time. That's the better time to really lead someone to their own understanding of how they're actually going to produce better. And so weekly one-on-one meeting agenda to let them know, here's when we meet, here's what that looks like, team meeting agendas. Make sure if you have meetings that you have those templates, you get it out to everyone, they know those agendas, and then quarterly and annual reviews. So there's the frequency for that. Monitoring is real key. A lot of times we set, quotas and goals, and then we go off about our day and don't measure and monitor them as much. That's a real key to start incorporating if you're not doing it. And then the last two really are training and coaching as it goes along with the sales performance metrics. When you look at that, you're looking at product and services training, but skills development and even team building. So there's some different aspects of training. And then coaching, really implementing a corporate sales coaching program to increase sales faster, reinforce best practices, execution, things you taught them in training, covers these key topics here. And these are some templates and tools that can be leveraged. You know, what is your sales coaching framework? The sales achievement framework is one thing we created, which basically takes those 6 core competencies and allows you to roll out a coaching program focused on those to teach your team, each individual actually, to be better prepared, more organized, more productive. And so looking at those at that frequency is going to be key. And that coaching leads us to the next topic, which is how to apply the #1 strategy for consistently getting more out of each individual sales performer. And when you look at this, this is actually a Gartner study that was recently done. They do a lot of quadrants, and one thing they looked at was, you know, what support from upper management, what's important to Salesforce success. As you can see in the red here, the only thing that's in this quadrant 4 as most important and least supported is sales coaching. So that's the #1 strategy, is sales coaching. Yet it's the most important, you know, strategy you could apply, but it tends to be the least supported by companies that are out there. And one thing that you're going to get as an additional handout is this particular, what we call sales coaching framework. This walks you through all sorts of research. I'm going to save time here since I know we're running up against it coming up here. I want to leave a little bit of time for questions. But you'll see that, you know, different research done by reputable agencies shows the results that can be produced by coaching. The one thing I want to distinguish here is the difference between traditional sales management and actual sales coaching, because a lot of individuals feel, or a lot of executives feel like, hey, I think I am coaching my reps. And how do I know that, though? And this would be the answer. Management tends to be about 3 M's. Coaching tends to be about 3 L's. When it comes to management, it's about metrics, movement, and motivation. So there's specific metrics. We talked about those that you need to review weekly. And then the goal of the metrics is to have opportunities in their pipeline, and you want to move those opportunities through the pipeline faster to closure, so you bring on new clients and new business. And then you always want to motivate them to do more, whether they're above that line or below that line, and rinse and repeat. That tends to be the sales management mantra, the 3 M's here: metrics, movement, motivation. And even if you're doing that at a one-on-one level, that's where a lot of managers think, hey, I'm doing coaching because I'm getting down to the one-on-one level. That's really about those 3 M's. It's not necessarily about that individual and helping them with challenges, issues, and goals. And that's where sales coaching comes in. It's about 3 L's: listening, learning, and leading. Listening, when you look at effective listening, that's the result of effective questioning techniques. To be an effective listener, you have to ask effective questions. And the reason why you listen is to learn about that individual, what their challenges are, what their issues are, what their goals are, and then and only then can you lead them to their own understanding, so they can start to produce immediate results after that. And that tends to be that aha moment. It's so easy for us as managers and executives with experience to quickly recognize what their problem is. Hey, I know your problem. You need to get on the phone and make more calls. You need more meetings. You don't have enough opportunities in your pipeline. Get out there and start networking or making more calls. You know, now that you got the answer, go out there and do it. Well, they already know that. They tend to know what they need to do, but there's something holding them back from actually doing it. That's where coaching comes in and is very, very handy to listen to them, because then you start to learn what's really holding them back, and then you got to lead them to their own understanding so they get it internally, and it's their idea almost, where they understand, okay, now that makes sense, and then they go out and do it. So it's not about driving and telling them what to do. Management tends to be a little bit about that because you have to, by the nature of metrics, movement, motivation. But listening, learning, and leading is a little bit more, you got to be a little bit more patient. Not every executive or manager has that unique skill set or quality. It's not in their DNA. That's why they've gotten to where they have. So if coaching isn't something that you have people on board that can do based on their DNA and their personality types, then you might want to look to another firm, whether it's ours or another company that does that. And that's where we go in and help companies with that. So when you look at this sales coaching framework, this one piece, this one data sheet here is packed with a lot of information. But to summarize what a good sales coach would do, they provide what we call a AAA advantage. They're an advocate, advisor, and accountability partner. So an advocate lifts you up on a down day. They're always in your corner. They're rooting for your success. An advisor teaches you something new. They're going to recognize areas for improvement. They're going to guide and lead you from confusion to clarity. And then finally, the accountability partner doesn't accept excuses. They're going to expect progress results. They're going to hold you accountable. The analogy I like to use here is the personal fitness analogy. If you go to the gym and you see a spin cycle class, you have an instructor on a bike that's facing 20 to 30 other bikes. You jump on one of those open bikes, you're one of the group there. That's very much like sales training, where it's instructor-led. It's a one-time event or a series of one-time events, but it's really up to the trainee once they, in this scenario, get off the bike and go out there to continue to work out, stay healthy, eat healthy. That instructor is not going to get off the bike, follow you out of that classroom, and ensure that you're achieving your personal goals. That's where a personal fitness trainer or coach comes in, where they'd sit down with you one-on-one. They're going to understand your unique challenges, issues, and goals, and they bring a program to the table, but they're going to tailor it to you, and furthermore, they're going to hold you accountable by working with you one-on-one on a weekly basis until you achieve your goals. So that's the difference there between a coach and a trainer. Both are very, very valuable. You get an ROI out of both of them, but coaching is really that #1 strategy that reinforces training. So if you're doing training, that's good, but make sure you're reinforcing that, because you'll see some different studies, and I think I have one of them in here, with the ROI, and there's another one that's not on this one, but here it is right here. Reps lose 87% of training in 1 month. And the good news is they retain 13% and apply it, but 1 month later, just 30 days later, we lose 87% of what we're trained on. But if you combine that training with coaching, it improves your return fourfold. So you go from a 22% return on investment out of training to an 88%. That was just one study that was done. So when you look at that, coaching is that #1 strategy. And if you're not doing coaching right now, you should consider rolling out a corporate sales coaching program for your business. And so the last thing to pull it all together here is how to build and develop a highly productive, results-driven sales team. I've run through a lot of information, but in one slide here, this kind of gives you a visual. You can print this off, sit down with your executive leadership team, with your business partners, and look at this and say, okay, what are we doing in the areas of sales talent, sales performance, and sales management? And try and simplify, because it can seem complex, but when you look at this, you could say sales talent simply is about 2 things, recruiting and ramping. When you look at recruiting, what is our sourcing strategy, interviewing and hiring process? I provided some tips early on about that. Before you source, you want to make sure that you're doing those things that I walked through earlier, and that really is all about sales recruiting there. Ramping is once they're on board. You've hired new sales hires. Now you look at orientation, onboarding, and you constantly want to evaluate them through that monitoring process there. And that starts to shift you from recruiting, and now they're on board, to starting to coach these individuals. The bulk of the coaching occurs on the performance bucket here. And performance is simply about 2 things, performing and producing. Performing is all about those 3 items there: preparation, organization, productivity, the 3 reasons why the common sales professional would struggle if they're not doing those things, and the cause of the best performing like they are. And then producing is really more about those results. So these are tangible things. When it comes to prospecting, you know how big your sales pipeline is, and you know how much business you're closing. So that's really, when it comes to producing, that's what you should be looking at when it comes to managing sales performance. And again, you can continue to coach them, apply that #1 strategy to coach them across both those items there. And then finally, sales management is about measuring and monitoring. When it comes to measuring, there's sales performance indicators. You need to determine what those are. And then there's key performance metrics. Indicators indicate sales success is coming soon or not, and key performance metrics show you they are successful or not. And then both those things can lend itself well to helping you forecast for your business and what is future performance going to look like. Helps with budgeting and hiring and allocating headcount, things like that, and what you need to do to continue to grow the business. And then finally, the monitoring. Obviously, we recommend you have a CRM system. There's lots of them out there. Salesforce.com tends to be the biggest one. You should have something there. We have no bias on what system you should use, but the only bias we have is that you should have a system in place that manages your pipeline, your opportunities, your accounts, your contacts, all that good stuff to make life easier for your reps. Sales portal is good to have a collaborative sales portal on best practices and sharing best practices amongst the team members, and you could also enable coaching through that. We have a tool called My Coach Site that we've recently rolled out. We leverage that within all our corporate sales coaching programs. So all things coaching are captured and collaborated through there. It even allows you to deliver live, remote, video, chat-based coaching if you have a geographically distributed sales team, and interactive tools in there as well. But it holds you accountable and ensures that the coaching is occurring, and it enables more effective delivery of coaching. And then finally, dashboards can pull information from those systems for executives that are short on time to show you just the critical few sales performance indicators, key performance metrics to understand the pulse of the organization. And those are things we call coaching enablement. So that's pulling it all together. That wraps it up for the presentation part of how to build and develop a highly productive, results-driven sales team. So let me punch this out here and see, Pat, let me see if I can get, if we had any questions in here. I'm not sure, Pat. So Craig or Michael, I'm not sure if we had any, if you could see if we had any questions that were typed in. If not, I'm going to go ahead and open it up and see if anyone has any questions while we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, real quick, Sean, there's one real good one here. What if the founders aren't salespeople? How does one sell the need for coaching?
How does one sell the need for, are you talking about internal?
I think he's saying, how does he sell the need for sales coaching to the founders of the company who don't come from a sales background?
Gotcha. So, and this might be a sales manager, it might be a rep who wants coaching. We see that quite a bit. I'm assuming maybe it's a manager who works for maybe an emerging growth company. I'm just making an assumption here. And it's run by founders who don't have that traditional sales background. I will tell you this, that describes our most common client, who the founders tend to be more technical in nature. They invented a great product and service around that. They built it on their relationships, and now they started to scale their business. They've hired a sales team. Once it got to 3, 4, or 5, it kind of outstripped their ability to manage them, so they hired a sales manager maybe. And now the manager has a lot on their plate between managing. We already walked through those 3 M's, but how do they sell the need for coaching to that founding management team when they don't have a traditional background? Number one is they can leverage the materials that we'll provide. So whether you bring in us or another firm that does sales coaching, just like I wouldn't recommend me selling your service or anyone, the best person to sell your product or service is you, right? You wouldn't want to just quickly give someone information and trust they're going to go sell it. I would find a firm like ours or another firm that does it, that does sales coaching, they specialize in it, because they're going to communicate it more effectively than you will, just to be candid. And so I'd recommend partnering up with a firm like that. Doesn't obligate you to buy from them, and have them participate in that process. So very many times we'll arm them with info. That one data sheet, and I'll pop it back up here if I can get to it. Let me move this thing through here. But the one data sheet that you're going to get in conjunction with this that I was just looking at, arm them with that and go in and just try and introduce the subject, just socialize it a bit. If they're interested, then pull in a provider that can help you with it. And whether that provider is going to teach you how to coach and then you coach your team, or you're looking to bring that provider in and they're going to coach your individuals and you continue to manage them, I think you're best with a kind of a co-selling approach there. If you really want it as a manager, bring in a firm that specializes in that, have them sell it, but it's your idea. You introduce it, you're the sponsor of it, and you strongly recommend that founding leadership team, founders that don't have the sales experience, at least take an hour to sit down and just evaluate it, because it can help grow the company. Usually founders are realistic. They may say, hey, I'm still against it, but if you feel that strongly about it, I'll at least give these guys an hour, let's sit down, even if it's over lunch or whatever else, and have them understand a little bit more about sales coaching, the power of it, and why it's the #1 strategy, why they should consider it, and why it's different than maybe what they've done in the past.
Sean, there's several more questions coming in, but we need to be respectful of everybody's time. It's right at the top of the hour, so just want to wrap it up here. First of all, thanks a bunch, Sean. This has been a great presentation. I learned a lot. Really well organized, really well done. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And for everybody on the call, as I mentioned earlier, you'll be getting an email tomorrow that'll have links to the video of today's presentation, the slides, and also links to register for the next Sales Growth Hub webinar, which is coming up in 2 weeks. And Chris Burris, who is a web marketing lead generation specialist, will be the host. So that's on the 7th of May. So hope you can all join us for that. Go to the Sales Growth Hub and you can register for that. And we'll look forward to seeing you all there. And again, thanks a bunch to Sean Piket.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and make it a great day.
Thanks, Sean.